welcome to the regular Board of Education meeting of May 20th. We're going to start the meeting with the recitation of the vision statement, and that is that every school will be a thriving school that prepares every student to graduate from high school, college, career, and community ready. Next on the agenda, we have a really special treat tonight. I am excited to welcome the Project Soapbox speakers. So we have several amazing MMSD students who recently performed at this year's Project Soapbox event. Project Soapbox is a public speaking opportunity that highlights the voices of our youth. Middle school and high school students were asked to select a topic or issue they're passionate about and explain why it is an issue and suggest an action to address it. This opportunity allows students to engage in action civics. Over 1,700 students participated at the classroom and school level, with over 100 students sharing their voices at the Overture Center in March in the district finale. 3 of our MMSD students, Aria Bowman from West High School, Claire Neblet from Toki Middle School, and Zainab Yahi. I practiced this with her, and I told her I was going to have a problem once I got up here. Yahiawi. Okay, thank you. From Senate Middle School, all stood out in the finale. In fact, Aria and Zainab will be heading to Washington, D.C. to compete in the national finals. And MMSD has 2 of the 20 slots, with over 15,000 students that vied for them nationally. Aria's topic focused on sexism and beauty ideals, Claire's focused on topics around racism, and Zainab focused on ending Muslim stereotypes. Certainly, these students represent the power of youth voice and demonstrate an inspiring leadership by speaking publicly about crucial issues. We would now like to invite these 3 students here with us here today to present their topics. First, Aria, would you please come up to the microphone here at the stage and share your piece?
She's a pretty girl, but she won't ever believe it. She could find a million imperfections within just 1 inch of her body. That mask of makeup she wears is to shield the eyes from her freckled face. She's a pretty girl, but she won't ever believe it. Those crossed arms over her stomach are to hide that extra piece of cake from last night that she thinks makes her fat. Yet, she wishes she wasn't so skinny. She's a pretty girl, but she won't ever believe it. The things she sees on TV tell her that she's not good enough. She has to be thin, tall, white, successful, have a small appetite, thick. When she wakes up in the morning with a zit on her face, she cries herself to sleep because when she looks in the mirror, she can't stand herself. She's a pretty girl, but she won't ever believe it. She stays away from boys because they couldn't possibly love someone that looks like her. She was told she had to look a certain way to attract men. Attract men, like it's her job to attract men. She was told this certain way was not how she looked. She's a pretty girl, but she will never believe it. How could she believe it when society tells her every part of the way she looks is wrong? Put on some weight. Are you even healthy? You look manly. Guys don't like skinny girls. People like you shouldn't wear bikinis. You are ugly. She's a pretty girl, but she won't ever believe it. The body expectations that are thrusted upon young women eat them alive until they are nothing more than names. She wishes she loved herself, but wherever she looks, there will always be someone more beautiful. She's a pretty girl, but she won't ever believe it. Young girls are told to sit quiet, look pretty, be obedient, be perfect. When we stop tearing each other and ourselves apart over what the media tells us we must look like. Accepting ourselves is hard, but I hope one day we will all find the courage to let that true beauty shine through. She's a pretty girl, and she knows it.
Aria, thank you very, very much. Next, we'd like to invite Claire to the front to speak on racism.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for who? Because it is not justice for all. It will be justice for all when people stop labeling all Muslims as terrorists. It will be justice for all when Black and Hispanic teens do not need to feel afraid of the police because of the color of their skin. It will be justice for all when all people feel accepted in their communities, regardless of skin color or religion. Today I'm talking to you about racism. Although this issue has been going on for hundreds of years and has improved, it has not been completely fixed. In 2018, over 1,000 people were shot and killed by the police, 25% of which were Black people, despite Black people only being 13% of the population in America. 70% of those Black people were unarmed and nonviolent. When parents of minority children see these things in the media, they teach their children to be cautious. Society has made this a principle for people of color in America, that it is normal to feel targeted and hated, that it is normal to live our lives looking over our shoulders in fear. Although law enforcement is one racist part of society, it is not the only problem. A Black person is far more likely to be turned away from job than a white person with fewer credentials and a criminal record. This is unfair and affects many Black people with families that they need to support. There is no cure, no drug, no invention that we need in order to stop racism. We already have the answer. We need to accept each other. We need to understand that the melanin in someone's skin does not define them. No one was born hating others for the color of their skin. People were taught to. Now people need to teach themselves not to. There are things that you can do. If you hear racist comments or derogatory terms, speak out. Together, we can make it justice for all. Thank you.
Claire, thank you very, very much. And last but not least, we'd like to invite Zainab to the stage to share her piece on ending Muslim stereotypes.
I am a Muslim American student. I am a Senate scholar. I want you to listen to these two words and try to find the difference between them. Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar. The difference between these two words is that the first one comes from the mouth of a non-Muslim American student who says these words because they are fun and funny. They feel the need to throw this racial stereotype to every single Muslim they see because it symbolizes the blowing up of something. The second one comes from the mouth of a Muslim man or woman who says it when they need help, when they need guidance. It symbolizes the reassurance that God is the greatest and brings us the calm and peace. Allahu Akbar. I feel bad for the Muslim boys and girls, but mostly the girls, they wear a hijab on their head, which symbolizes the religion. They get scared to go anywhere because of the fear of being called a terrorist. Imagine walking down the hall one day when suddenly somebody yells it out, Allahu Akbar! You try to push it at the far end of your mind and laugh it off because you don't want to be the uncool one, or the unfunny one, or the party pooper. Allahu Akbar. I feel bad. Just stop. It's not funny, it's not cool, it's not a joke. It's not funny, it never was funny. And I'm here to speak out. Speak out on behalf of all of the Muslims. Not only is this joke, offending, but it's also scary. Scary as in you walking anywhere and everyone's judging you because they think you're about to go and blow up the place. Because of what you believe in, because of your religion, because of what you're wearing. Allahu Akbar. I have to prepare myself, yes, prepare myself for endless questions and comments every day, like, what's that on your head? Do your parents force you to wear that? What would you do if I just yanked that off your head? While all of these are very annoying after getting repeated every 5 seconds by a stranger, the worst thing I've been told was to warn someone the day before I was going to bomb up the school. Allahu Akbar. I take comfort in knowing that I am a fun person to be around, that everyone can throw these racial slurs left and right around me because I am someone who does not care. Allahu Akbar. My religion is not your joke. My religion is not your insult. I am not a terrorist. I am Zainab Yahyawi, a Muslim American Senate scholar.
Wow, that was really amazing, and I want to thank Aria and Claire and Zainab for their work. I mean, I'm so proud that they're going to be representing us, and you did a wonderful job. We'd like to invite you to come up so we could take a photo with all the board members, and I'd like everyone here to give them one last round of applause. Next, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for the passing of community member Tony Jones and school psychologist Dr. Virginia Ruth McKinney Henderson. Tonight, we are saddened to report the recent passing of beloved Madisonian Tony Jones and former MMSD school psychologist and administrator Virginia Ruth McKinney Henderson. Tony Jones was most recently a coach with the La Follette boys basketball program, and his partner is a teacher at Wright Middle School. Over a number of years, Tony coached with a number of programs across our district, and he had many community connections. He was a role model for our youth to follow and a beloved friend to many. Dr. Virginia Ruth McKinney Henderson worked as a school psychologist for MMSD and later became the superintendent's special assistant for equity and diversity. Even in retirement, Virginia remained the diversity consultant for MMSD, focusing on eliminating racial disparities and creating equitable opportunities for all students. She was also very involved in the community and involved with many organizations that have helped our youth. Both Tony Jones and Dr. Virginia Ruth McKinney Henderson will be dearly missed, and their legacies and memories of passionately serving our students and families will live on. Please join us in a moment of silence as we remember both Tony and Virginia. Okay. Next on the agenda is the election of officers. The officers for school board are the positions of president, vice president, treasurer, clerk, and secretary. These elections are done once a year. The first position that we will have the election for is the board president. Are there any nominations for the office of president? I would like to go ahead and nominate Gloria Reyes. Okay. Are there any other nominations? Hearing no further nominations, nominations for the office of president are closed. For board president, Gloria Reyes was nominated. And since there are no other candidates, Gloria Reyes has been elected president for the 2019-20 school year. With that, I will turn it over to our new president.
Thank you, Mary. I am so honored. As a former PERG holder, it is even more like I just feel great to have been elected in my former school. So thank you, and I look forward to serving as your board president. So bear with me as I learn the process. Thank you. So next election is vice president. Do we have any nominations for the vice president?
I would like to nominate Kate Taves.
Kate Taves. Another nomination?
I would like to nominate Nikki Vandermeulen.
Okay, we have two nominations, Kate Taves and Nikki Vandermeulen. Barb? We have the ballot. Vice President in front of you. Okay, just write the name of your vote. And Barb, will you collect them? Yes. Yes. Okay. Okay, the vote is Kate Taves as our next vice president. Congratulations, Kate. Who are you? Thank you. And I think we're going to switch some seats. So the next position is treasurer, and that is traditionally held by a chief financial officer, and our chief financial officer is Kelly Rubel. I move that we elect Kelly by acclamation. And can I get a second?
Second.
Ahmad, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Wait, what?
Oh, I'm sorry, secretary. Okay. Okay. So I'm sorry, that was secretary. So Kelly Rubel is our secretary. Sorry about the confusion. Our next election is treasurer. Do we have any nominations for treasurer?
I nominate Chris Carusi for treasurer.
Any other nominations? Okay, it is closed. And because we have no other nominations, Chris Carusi is our treasurer. Congratulations. Next nomination is clerk, or officer's clerk position. Do we have any nominations for the clerk position?
I did last year, I'm glad to stay.
Okay, Nikki? I hear a nomination for Nikki. Any other nominations? Okay, nominations are closed. All in favor of Nikki? Aye. Okay, we got Nikki. Congratulations, Nikki.
Thank you.
All right, so now we are done, correct? All right. We are on to public appearances. We want to thank you for coming to speak your truth to us this evening and for being here to share this space. Given our new location for this month, I want to highlight a few things to help ensure that our time together runs smoothly. First, thank you for signing up before 6 p.m. Thank you for keeping the aisles clear to ensure safety, and thank you for helping us ensure that every speaker has an opportunity to make their comments. Remember that allowing any viewpoint to be shared is not an endorsement of that viewpoint. It is endorsement of the right to speak. We will go ahead and begin with public comments. We have 2 speakers, it looks like. We have 33 speakers today. Okay, go ahead.
Hello, thank you for having me here. Well, I need your help, and I am not the only teacher that needs it. I love Madison, I love teaching, and I love my students. I have a PhD from UW-Madison in Spanish. I have been teaching for over 20 years. And the satisfaction of being a DLI teacher in Madison has brought many different types of joys, and I'm very proud of the people studying in Cherokee. Last year I was not familiar with the opportunities available for the students, and last year we had no students accepted into the People program. This year I'm glad to say we got 13 accepted, and we have 4 on the waiting list. We also got 2 in the ITA. I've also gotten about over $10,000 in grants and donations to get resources for the students. Field trips, for example. I started a hip hop and spoken word club. I started a fishing club and got money and donations for the equipment and if you fish, you know that it's so empowering, and just catching one fish it changes your life really. To the fish too. I also got a grant to get some parent training, and now we have daily healthy snacks, we have furniture for the classroom, and we have culturally relevant books. Last week my students, they won their second soccer match. 4 weeks ago, they heard that MSCR had a league, but no one had applied. So it was too late this spring. They started a petition and got 200 signatures. And since they got the soccer team going, these students have been helping each other with their homeworks and with their getting all their assignments done, staying in class, and in order to keep up the grades and being able to play. They play on Wednesday again. My students, I know, believe they are part of the community, that in their hands they have the power to change the world. I see them wearing the Cherokee shirt and representing the school. They are happy, they're laughing, they're enjoying school, and I see them coming to my class every day. But when I was hired 3 years ago with an emergency license, I was told that based on my having a doctorate in teaching experience, I would not have to take any more classes, and I have it in writing. And a couple of months later, I was told I needed to go back to school. And as of today, I do not have a contract to teach next year. And despite all the rhetoric of creating a more diverse teaching population, everything that I have experienced is contrary to that philosophy. And there are other teachers licensed in other states who are facing similar situations. Just in my school, we're 5. And I do want to teach in Madison in the school next year. And I'm just wondering, what else I need to do to keep my job. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Vanessa Leo Luis.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here. My name is Vanessa Bello Ruiz. I am an 11th grader here representing the Latinx Student Union Leadership Board. That being said, I am here to inform you of our intentions to work with the Madison School Board to implement a semester and/or a year-long Chicanos/Latinos en America studies course. We believe that having a course like this will give Latino students in East High School a sense of belonging and representation of our history and culture that is often skimmed over in our social studies courses. In the upcoming months, we hope to collaborate more in depth with the school board. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Next speaker, Amy Garvol. Okay.
No one ever gets that in the first try. Good evening, my name is Amy Garvol. I'm a teacher here at East. I would like to address two topics tonight. One, comments that were made in a recent ISMUS article, and then second, base wage bargaining. In last week's article in the ISMUS called A Rotten Year, there were comments made by Ms. Muldrow that deeply offended me and many of my colleagues. I'm just trying to teach my class, this is her quote, I'm just trying to teach my class and black kids are getting in my way. It would be really helpful when I want them sent out, they got sent out. When I want them suspended, they got suspended, says Muldrow, playing the role of a white teacher. I would like permission to discriminate against students of color so I can do my job. I realize that that wasn't directed at me because I'm confident in my relationships with students, with parents, and with the community. However, I'm offended by the broad generalization that you made of teachers. If this is not what you meant, then you need to provide clarification to all teachers and to all readers of this article and to the members of our community. We are already fighting for respect that is waning, and this type of comment does not help the perception that people have of teachers. Next, and this ties into the idea of respect and base wage bargaining, I'd like to voice my support of at least a 2.44% base wage raise. Again, thinking about respect, I found an article written by a teacher that is a reminder of what respect should look like, and I'd like to quote the article. Respecting me as a teacher means acknowledging that I spend far more than 40 hours a week working for my students, but that my inadequate compensation reflects only the hours spent in the classroom. Make sure teachers are fairly paid for all the work we do. Respecting me as a teacher means acknowledging that I am walking with my students through some trauma, sometimes trauma that mirrors my own. Provide counselors and support staff for students whose experiences keep them from being fully present for learning. Respecting me as a teacher means acknowledging that I am an adult. And even though I do not have biological children, I do have responsibilities outside of my job. Always respect a professional's time and contracted schedule. Respecting me as a teacher means acknowledging that I have studied the art and craft of educating. I am skillful, I am competent. Give teachers the autonomy we deserve and allow us to make decisions about how best to reach our students. Respecting me as a teacher means acknowledging that I earn, on average, 30% less than other similarly educated professionals in the service sector. Fix that disparity. Respecting me as a teacher means honoring my time, my effort, my knowledge, and my need for self-care. I know we have a wellness policy in the district. Let's not forget. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Michael, and I'm a youth leader at Freedom Inc. Today I will be talking about one of our demands, which is investing in youth of color. Instead of investing money to police, invest this money into programs that will actually help youth of color's education. I see that teachers want the best for their students by helping them get an IEP or labeling them as if they had a disability, but did you know that it is actually hurting their education? My brothers never had the proper education that they were supposed to have. They got different kinds of classes than the rest of their classmates. I live with my brothers and I know they don't have a disability. They live and do everything like any other person would do. They are smart, they know how to get around things. So why did my brothers get labeled as if they are disabled? How do you measure someone that has a disability? I believe that if they were properly educated, they wouldn't be where they are now. I also had experienced this myself. I had to be put into the IEP system. As a high schooler, I thought this was such a great opportunity for me, getting extra time to do my test, having extra support and getting easier stuff, and this really helped me. But I also did not know how it really impacted my learning. Once I figured out that I had a learning disability, I figured why, who put me up to this. I thought I was just like any other student. But after the conversation with my teacher, I thought to myself and understood why I was taking some other classes. I felt dumb. I felt so low of myself. I felt like school wasn't for someone like me who has been looked down. I tried not to put this into whatever I was doing and pulled myself up. Stop putting kids into a place like where I was at, so I am asking you all to invest in us so we can be better. Students who have learning disabilities shouldn't feel like they are not intelligent, and they should have all the resources they need to learn. Also, kids with learning disability are more likely to have police contact. Black high school students with disability were 76 times more likely to be arrested at MSD at school in 2015. This is ridiculous, and y'all need to do better as a district to provide students with disability instead of criminalizing them. Give them the resource they need to thrive, and you already know how to do it because you do it with white students. You see them as children when they are having a behavioral concern. You don't call the police on them like you do to black children with learning disabilities. It just seems like you don't see us as being worthy and of the same love, care, and support. Regardless of what you think or feel about us, I am telling you that we deserve better. We need to take cops out of schools, invest in learning wellness and creativity of youth of color. Use transformative justice instead of punishing youth, and let the parents, youth, and community have control over schools.
Thank you. Can we, yeah, go ahead. Selena again?
Okay, so safety means the condition of being protected from harm. But does our school look safe when girls are getting sexually assaulted? When a child got her heel pulled out by a teacher for just spraying perfume? When a teacher is abusing a child at Franklin Elementary? And school, especially for girls and LGBTQ people, don't feel safe at all. When all these incidents happen, this clearly proves that the police was never there to help out, and the school board does nothing serious about these problems. So why have cops in schools? How are you going to expect students of color to build relationships with their EROs when all they do is harass, target, and harm them? I personally don't feel comfortable at school because teachers are always calling security for a student who is talking back or not following instructions. And it's uncomfortable for me to witness that teachers don't care about students at all. And those students are usually students of color. So I suggest that you take cops out of school, invest in learning, wellness, and creativity in Black youth of color, girls and LGBTQ youth, and youth with disabilities. You use transformative justice instead of punishing youth. Give parents, youth, and impact communities a real decision-making power in schools.
Thank you. Asiana, beautiful name.
As I get older, the more I see cops for what they truly are, and for how they feel about Black people. They are trained to shoot and ask questions later. They are the type of people to take an innocent life but only get leave for a couple months then go back to work. Cops aren't here to keep us safe. Cops aren't here to save the day. Cops aren't here to make sure that black youth is okay. So what the hell is their job for real? Their job is to harass us and get paid, if we want to be honest. And when it comes to them being in schools, I feel more attacked at school than I do walking down the street. Am I in jail or am I at school? How many shootings have police stopped in schools? None. How many kids have they injured or arrested because of a racist-ass police? Thousands. You school board members don't go to school anymore, so how are y'all to say what we need in our schools? When I walk into a school, I already feel like I have to prove my worth just because I'm black. I'm going to be looked at different. I'm going to be held to higher expectations because if I don't, I'm looked at as a failure. You know how hard it is for me to be perfect every day, let alone have a racist cop who doesn't even have training with kids. How y'all put police to schools but can't even invest money in supporting things such as new history books or even giving teachers raises, maybe they do their job right. Invest into bus cards, more transportation for students who struggle getting home into school. Y'all only worried about y'all image. Y'all don't care about how we feel. I'm sick of coming up here, but I swear to you, y'all gonna see me at every meeting, every month, until y'all give my peoples what they deserve.
Okay. Being black in Madison is one of the hardest things to do. But being black and queer is even harder. I've always known I've had a little rainbow in me, but I never really spoke up about it until a couple of years ago. In police's eyes, there's only two genders, male and female. And as a gender non-conforming person of color, I'm letting you know that there are way more than those two. It's hard for me to even be comfortable enough to open up to you all in this space because y'all seem not to care. I don't feel welcome in this space, nor safe, which is an issue by itself. These meetings are supposed to help the community feel like we have a space to come and talk about what we need and what's best for us. But instead, me and the people like myself don't feel welcome because as soon as we come in this space, we're watched like hawks, hunting prey by security and the board itself. Why is it that people like me in the community have to come and beg y'all to listen every meeting? We should be heard and taken seriously every time we come and stand here for our 3 minutes. I want y'all to really take us queer and gender non-conforming folks seriously because it's a lot of us out here that expect it, and we expect for y'all to do better. The policing of the black community has gotten out of hand and nobody but us seem to care. How is it that in 2004, a black woman who plays football got arrested for using the women's restroom? Or that a woman lawyer in Texas who also was just wearing a suit got arrested for the same thing? Or how about the death of Michelle Booker, 23, found dead in Dallas? She is the 4th transgender woman or person in the US, all of them back to be slain this year. So what are you saying, school board? If I were to walk into a bathroom with my sweater and sweatpants, I'll get arrested too, or even killed? Y'all really need to think about what's best for your queer and gender non-conforming and trans folks because we matter just as much, if not more, than anyone else here because we are the most impacted by your fucked up policies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Hua. I'm here to talk about the concern for the sexual assault case that happened at one of the Madison schools. There was a concern that to decrease future sexual assaults, an increase of cops' presence was needed. I can say that increasing cops' presence at school is not the answer. I have worked with many sexual assaulted folks, heard of many stories, and as a victim myself, I know that more cops would not make me feel safer. In fact, I would feel more threatened. More than half of the sexual assault cases go unreported in fear of blame, retaliation, further victimization, and feeling shame. Many victims also believe cops will not do anything to help them. Victims do not report to police due to improper or inadequate police practices and procedures, such as disbelief, dismissing a victim's report as inadequate or unfounded, and the anticipation of a long and difficult trial. Statistics also say that 50% of women of color will be victims of sexual assault, the LGBTQ and disabled even more so. These people are already targeted in many ways, especially by the police. Freedom Inc. has been saying for the past 2 years that police do not protect Black and brown people. I cannot put trust in police to keep victims safe, since most victims are people they do not even see as worthy of protection. How will an increase in cops' presence help hypersexualized Black girls and already targeted youth? They are not trained to handle sexual assault cases. They are not culturally trained for the physical, mental, and emotional aftermath of this crime. Many victims will not find comfort in police for these reasons. If you truly care for the well-being of sexual assault victims and survivors, invest in counselors who specialize in sexual assaults. Reach out to community organizations who help sexual assault victims and survivors who provide culturally specific services to meet the victims' safety needs. Create policies that remove societal and structural barriers that prevent survivors from coming forward and create policies of sexual assault prevention. Take police out of schools and let the community have decision-making power to protect the victims and survivors. Thank you.
Thank you.
So my name is pronounced Sabang. I want the FYS youth to stand up. Stand up, because you guys have worked so hard, and you know what? Today, the audience here needs to recognize y'all, because you've been working on this, and you know what? You need applause. You guys are the ones that brought us all here. The community is here because you're great, okay? Because of your campaign. I want to address the fact that Black girls are not seen and not protected as victims. Underprotected Black sexual assault girls, victims in school. The question of survivor among Black girls has always been about whether they are seen, and if so, how they are seen, particularly in economic and social isolated space such as schools. Quote, at nearly 90%, the rate of sexual assault victimization for Black girls and young women is among the highest for any groups in the nation. Girls experience sexual assault, objectification, or being seen as hypersexual in many places, including at home and on the street, on the bus, and in school. It's webs that not only entangles Black girls' bodies, but also ensnare their minds. In the hallways, in the classrooms, in the yard, and in the bathroom, Black girls describe conditions in which their bodies are scrutinized, touched, often without permissions, and objectified in ways that makes them feel self-conscious and constantly defensive. This is a quote from the book Pushed Out. I work as a domestic violence and sexual assault advocate for my communities. I have heard stories of their survivals and struggles in daily lives. They face police and had bad experience with authorities. They survive their perpetrator every minute of the day while trying to make a living. The police will only trigger their emotional and physical pain. So every time they see a police officer, they experience their sexual assault all over again. Police will only do more harm to Black and brown students, and mostly for those who've been sexually assaulted. They should not have to experience this in their school. Maintaining zero tolerance policy and behavior education plans will do more harm to Black girls instead. We should invest in the learning and wellness and creativity of Black youth, youth of colors, girls, and LGBTQ youth, and youth with disability. I ask you, our demand is that take cops out of school, invest in learning and wellness and creativity in Black youth, youth of colors, girls, LGBTQ youth, and youth with disability. Use transformative justice instead of punishing youth. Give parents, youth, and impacted communities to make decisions and give them the power to keep our schools safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi everyone. I'm hearing a lot of positive things about having an all-female school board, but none of it means anything if you're not actually going to implement policies that allow for change for everyone, including LGBTQ folks, Black and brown folks, other people of color, women and girls, trans and gender nonconforming folks, and folks with disabilities, both visible and invisible. I cannot trust that you will protect girls, especially black girls, from injustice in schools, in particular sexual abuse in schools. I want to focus on this because so many people's reaction to the sexual assault at an MMSD school, this MMSD school, is to increase security or police presence in schools. I'm going to repeat this for those who have not been paying attention for the last 2 years. People do not protect black and brown bodies, especially when it comes to sexual assault. In fact, why aren't you all questioning how the police reacted to the sexual assault? They're not trained to work with victims or survivors of sexual assault. They're trained to hand out as many citations as possible to black and brown people and lock as many of them up as the jail fits. And if it doesn't fit, the police have no problem sending them out somewhere else. If you truly want to help victims and survivors of sexual assault, invest in the right ways to help students and possibly even your staff when sexual assaults happen until proper help is given to the victim or survivor. You need to work with advocates who actually work and are trained to work with victims and survivors, like many of us from Freedom Inc. And you need to make sure that help will be culturally specific for the victims and survivors of sexual assault. You cannot let a grown white man help a black girl who has been sexually assaulted. He doesn't know her experience, and he doesn't know the very least of things she may need to feel safe. You also need to be teaching students that it is not okay to be a damn perpetrator. So many girls and women are taught ways to not be a victim, but all these boys never hear, don't be a rapist. It's not enough to be ready for crisis intervention if you aren't working on prevention. And as an all-female school board, all eyes are on you to create policies to keep schools safe for victims and survivors of sexual assault. You have a chance to keep black and brown bodies safe from sexual assault. Black and brown students already do not trust schools to keep them safe. Black girls are hypersexualized so much that I do not trust that the schools will act sensitively enough to keep them safe and get the help they need to feel safe and heard when they are sexually assaulted. And if you care about victims and survivors of sexual assault, then you need to care about black and brown bodies, LGBTQ bodies, and bodies with disabilities, because those are the bodies that need to be heard and kept safe. Abled white bodies will always be heard. It's time to start keeping black and brown youth safe. Take cops out of schools. Thank you.
Hi, and also hi. Yeah, so really like this board and the board before it has like plenty of like information and like resources that we've sent them and that people continue to say in their speeches and stuff. So this is really a learning moment for everyone in the audience. So yeah, y'all ready? Okay, cool. So we've been talking about, like, our youth have been talking about for the past 2 years now, 2.5 years now, about how police in schools only feeds the school to prison pipeline. That the exposure to police actually only just increases a student's chance of being a part of the criminal justice system. They talked about what this means specifically for black youth. That they're actually like hyper surveilled in the classrooms and in their learning environments already, and already everything that they do is criminalized. Like criminalized, not just like a behavior problem, but like you actually need to go to prison for this, or you need to go to jail, you need to get corrected outside of this, outside of the community. We can't hold you, we don't have space for you here. I'm a domestic violence and sexual assault advocate at Freedom Inc. I do direct service work every damn day. That's Monday through the next Monday. Yes. Right? Crises pop off any moment. I have experience with this shit. Police make the problem worse when it comes to sexual assault. Like, the liberal thinking that comes behind that is like, okay, we have a problem, we'll remove you from society, and jail will fix you. That shit don't work. But it's okay, y'all. Radical, queer, black feminism has the answer. Don't worry about it. have the answer. I'm gonna explain to you right now how it is that police in school is actually a big problem when we're talking about gender justice. When we're talking about like an all women, all female school board, and we have like queer folks on the school board, right? How the carceral system will never be a solution for our folks, for black youth, for other youth of color, for LGBTQ youth, right? So the first thing is that having police in schools is actually increasing the jail population of young girls right now. In a study done in 2015 by 3 different organizations, the Human Rights Project for Girls, Center on Poverty and Inequality, and the Miss Foundation, they said that the proportion of black girls in the juvenile justice system is actually increasing. And this is still true today. In Racine, right now, like there's like, it's being incentivized by the state to like build a whole new jail complex. If they'll just build a pod for girls, they'll get a free new like jail complex in Racine. Like this is something that like the prison, like the revenue that prison brings, and they're now trying to include like girls in that. This study also asserts that girls in the juvenile justice system are disproportionately victims of sexual violence. And y'all might say, how? How can that even happen? Police help us. They actually are gonna be there to respond when someone gets assaulted in the hallway at East High School. It's because girls who are sexually assaulted, and especially black girls, who already don't have the support that they need in their homes and their communities and stuff like that, when they go to school, their trauma actually induces reactive behavior. I'll be finished when I'm done, when I go sit down.
Okay, Martha, do we have a table for the board?
The ways that we enforce like discipline in our schools actually is not a trauma-informed. It's actually not a trauma-informed way of dealing with victims of domestic violence. I don't give a damn about your timer because this is something that girls are going through every damn day.
I get it.
And like I said, I'm a domestic violence and sexual assault advocate, and I see this shit every day, and it's urgent for me. So I think it deserves more than 3 minutes. I'll be done in a minute, Gloria.
Thank you for your
service. I'll let you finish, and then you let me finish. Thank you. So the ways the police actually respond to girls who have all this trauma that they're dealing with is in a way that actually exacerbates it. It actually makes it worse. Like they don't know what the fuck a trauma-informed response is, and they don't have the practice actually doing that. They don't have to. Another way that having police in schools is feeding the sexual abuse to prison pipeline is that the juvenile justice system fails to address and often exacerbates trauma caused by girls that cause the girls to be there. So I just got sexually assaulted or abused, and then the police react badly to me, my school reacts badly to me, and then I'm supposed to be getting fixed in juvenile detention, and then actually what they do is make things worse. So all of these things, like I say this to say that like you as a board, like if you're actually invested in stopping sexual assault and sexual abuse, you need to remove the police immediately. That should be on your damn agenda every meeting, trying to figure out how to do that. Yes. You cannot say that you're for women and girls if you're still allowing them to be in the schools. If you got plenty heck of like security in here just for a damn school board meeting. Like, I don't understand like how best to say it, how otherwise to say it. Like this is something that's like near and dear to me because like I said, I work with this every day. And like you actually need to make a move around this. Exposing them to law enforcement, where they're already hyper-surveilled and criminalized for everything they do is not the best solution at all. So I really want you to like consider what the youth have been saying for the past 3 years. Take the damn cops out of school. Anyone who uses the police on children, when there's that like imbalanced power dynamic, hold their asses accountable. Their parents should be able to come up there and say, you're fired. Don't come back. It shouldn't be like something that's hushed behind the closed doors. Use transformative justice models. If it's not moving someone from one behavior to a better behavior, if it's actually just gonna push them out of school, don't do it. And like we need actual community control. When people come up here and say this person is harming my child or these girls or whatever it is, listen to them. Listen to them. Give them an actual board to make decisions, right? So yeah, that's all I had to say.
Thank you for your service to our community. Thank you, Martha.
We keep
father of 5 children. I got something to say as a father of 5 children. I have 3 adult children and 2 children still in school. Cussing has to stop. You can get your point across without cussing these people out.
Colleen, thank you, Colleen, for coming
If that was
out.
the case, this
Bianca?
problem would have been solved 3 years ago. If that was the case,
Colleen?
this problem would have been solved. You can go wherever you want to, or we can talk outside. Right? If that was the case, we'll be free by now.
Thank you, Colleen. Have a seat. Thank you.
Okay.
Bianca?
So at Freedom Inc., we actually don't do respectability politics. Y'all probably figured that out by now. I am not somebody that's easily triggered. I am not somebody that easily cries. It actually takes a lot to make me cry. Being in this space right now is actually making me very emotional. The first time I came to this school, I stepped foot in this school, was actually for Tony Robinson's funeral. I wasn't a community organizer. I wasn't with Freedom Inc. I was just a graduate student trying to learn something and get the hell out of Madison, right? And then y'all killed Tony. The city killed Tony. Some of y'all on the school board contributed to that. So I didn't know that I would be here 4 years later trying to prove to people that police are not the solution for our children. I'm good, thank you. Tony's body in that casket should have been enough for y'all. And for the people in this room, right? So just know every day that you continue to invest in police, every second that you continue to allow police in our schools, every day that you choose a behavior education plan over transformative justice, that y'all are contributing to the physical and spiritual death of all of our children. Like many people said at Freedom Inc., we do a lot of gender justice work, specifically around domestic violence and sexual assault, and I know that y'all know me in my capacity as a youth worker that confronts and demands action around police violence, but like many people in our organization, our role is also to provide sexual assault and domestic violence services. I do that work particularly for Black women and girls and LGBT youth. And Freedom Inc. has been doing that work for almost 20 years, and a long time ago we made the assessment that there are a lack of services for Black people and queer people all over this country and in Madison, particularly when it comes to survivors. And I'm just warning you that I probably will go over the time just a little bit. But when our survivors need support, mainstream organizations often don't do that, right? They work with they rely on police, they rely on state violence, they rely on anti-Black policies and practices instead of relying on things that actually help our people when they're survivors. I can't tell you how many times my clients were criminalized when they called the police for support after being assaulted. I can't tell you how many times that their children were taken away after they have been assaulted. I can't tell you how many times they were kicked out by their landlords when the police were called, even though that's clearly against the law. I can't tell you how many times I can't tell you how many times they were denied shelter because of anti-Black policies. So when we talk about gender justice in school, when we talk about ending sexual assault and sexual violence in schools, we can't just do that with pretty white girls in mind, right? You have to center Black youth and queer youth of color because they're the ones that are most impacted, like we said. And when we talk about sexual assault, we can't talk about it without talking about the fact that when one of my youth defended herself when a white boy called her a bitch, she was suspended. There were no consequences for that child. We can't talk about it without talking about the fact that teachers pull on my kids' skirts telling them that they're being sexually inappropriate. We can't talk about it without talking about this comment that children will be children and boys will be boys. We can't talk about it without talking about the fact that school resource officers are questioning students' gender identity in very violent and dehumanizing ways. And you can't tell me that student at Franklin, Hamilton, Whitehorse, La Follette, Leopold and all the other schools where children were assaulted, you can't tell me they consented to that. So don't talk about sexual violence and consent without talking about that. Y'all set the policies and make it a requirement for our teachers, and the kids will follow suit. So again, I know that all of y'all are proud feminists on the school board, so I'm gonna give you a choice. You can choose to be white liberal carceral feminists that rely on police and prisons to solve problems, or you can choose transformative justice. You can choose to let the youth lead, and you can choose a different way. You actually have the choice and the power to do that. And you know, I know that some of y'all are new, and I actually have a lot of respect for some of the new people that are on the school board. Personally, I voted for y'all. But I'm not gonna come here and be nice much longer, because like I said, we're continuing to have police in schools, we're continuing to dehumanize our children, and y'all are continuing, right, to replicate Tony Robbinson's life in not a good way.
Thank you, Bianca.
So my name is M. Adams, and I am a father of 2 children. One of them is a recent graduate of Memorial High School, and the other one is a little guy at Leopold Elementary. We didn't get it right for my first kid, but there's the opportunity to get it right for the second. And as mentioned, Freedom Inc. focuses a lot on gender justice. I am an executive director, but I still provide direct services for people who are in high crisis surviving intimate partner violence and sexual violence. And based on my work, I emphasize with my children some important things, because I hope and wish for them a world of safety. And so I teach them things like, hey, nobody has the right to touch your body. You get to say no. You don't have to hug people if you don't want to hug people. You don't have to talk to people if you don't want to. You shouldn't be having conversations with strange adults. That's inappropriate. These are not your friends. Friends are people who are your age. You don't have to you don't have the right for people to be touching on your body and different things like that. Now, what's at the heart of that is a Black queer feminist politic. I'm a feminist, and I say that proudly. When people have asked me what do I think about an all-women school board, I say I don't think anything about it, but I think a lot about an all-feminist school board. And so, what's at the heart of what I teach my children is how to hold and have feminist values that respect who they are, that respect their bodily autonomy, integrity. And everything I just said to you all that I say to my 9-year-old, I recognize can get him killed by a police officer. If my 9-year-old is confronted by a police officer, and the police officer says, come here, and he says, this is a strange adult, I don't want to, he can be killed. If my 9-year-old says, don't touch me, why are you touching me? I recognize that he can be killed. If my 9-year-old says, hey, my baba, which is me, says you don't have the right to touch on my body, I recognize that he can be killed. So really what I'm trying to illustrate to you all in my real story is that police is a patriarchal system. And as feminists, we have to be against any form of domination, any form of coercion, and any form of any person's bodily autonomy being taken away. And as a feminist, then I am challenging you all, as feminists perhaps or aspiring feminists, to also be against it. And so we cannot, on one hand, teach a 9-year-old that nobody can just grab you, seize you, arrest you, that no bully can beat you down, but then says that this person who gets paid has the right to do it. That is it primarily, it's fundamentally against our values. And the last thing I'll say is, yesterday was Malcolm X's birthday, which means a lot to me, and Malcolm X in particular has shaped my thinking about what a bold, audacious world for Black people should be. And then also, this year marks the 50th anniversary of Black Studies. And Mandy Marable teaches us that Black Studies is supposed to do 3 things. 1, it's descriptive, what's happening for Black people. I'll be done pretty quickly. 2, what's corrective? What was the right story that should have been told about Black people? And 3, what was prescriptive? And so I, as a Black radical feminist, use part of that to guide my compass on how I approach a situation. So you all are faced with a problem. There are police in schools, and Black people, girls, queer and trans people are being harmed. And honoring Black Studies and honoring Malcolm X, we should say, how are we descriptive? What's the truth about it? What's the truth about what's happening? How are we corrective? What should have been told? What should have been said? And then how are we prescriptive? What ought we do so that my 9-year-old doesn't get killed when he goes to school at Memorial? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Marta Serrano.
Hey, thanks for letting me speak today. I wanted to actually have a quick learning moment that this room for a person with a disability and a wheelchair, this entire room is on a complete slope, and I am so uncomfortable right now, and the only other place for me to sit is up the stairs, up there. So I was gonna talk, so I'm here, so let's go. Now is the time to involve the community in picking Madison's next superintendent through an open, transparent, and democratic process. This was from the Isthmus article that was written on May 16th. So I wanted to know how you involved the community in this. I haven't gotten any emails regarding any applicant submission or any of the process that's in progress, as I get all the other MMSD emails and look through them. And my daughter's part of MMSD. And then when I looked online for tonight's agenda, it states that there was a finalization process and timeline for hiring the interim superintendent. And I'm anxious to know how that went also, because evidently it was upstairs, which you need to go either upstairs or find the elevator somewhere with a code to get there in order to do it. So as far as I'm concerned, this is more, and it's also listed as an open session, not a closed. So as far as I'm concerned, that was more like a hidden session, because no one knew where it was when we got here. Now, finalization literally means that there's a completion or approval of a finished and definitive version of something. Do we, the MMSD school community and the rest of Dane County residents, get to see the work that you're putting into this final outcome? If tonight's purpose is to notify the public of the interim superintendent final choice, this reflects a lack of transparency and inclusion of the people that this decision directly affects, which is all students and parents. And to be more also on a personal note, I'm part of the Special Education Parent Council. So when you guys moved your the meeting to the Chavez Elementary School, no one coordinated with the Special Education Council so they could come and speak after their meeting, which is the exact reason why it was in the same building previously. You guys need more time. We need more time. It was 1 week ago when I came with my friend Anna and we addressed the board about looking for the candidates through a nationwide search to bring in someone new with new ideas to address the areas that are definitely lacking. It's unlikely that you guys conducted a nationwide search during that time and got several qualified candidates and have them ready to go and to hire them already. Our students deserve the best candidate for this position that we can find, not simply one that is readily available. I hope that we learned today that we hear that you are giving us the opportunity to include the MMSD community students and staff in your search for a new superintendent who reflects leadership, brings new conversation, and embraces inclusion of all students in our schools.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Issa Saiz. I am an 8th grade student at Cherokee Heights Middle School, and I'm here to speak on behalf of my teacher, Ms. Beltran. She is an excellent teacher. I can relate to her. She keeps me engaged, makes me feel comfortable, respected, and heard. As a student, I really appreciate that. I believe that it is unjust that my teacher has to do her education here when she has already done it. She brings new insight and can probably relate to certain students more than any other teacher. Just because her education wasn't done here does not mean it is any less valid. If anything, I think it makes her that much more important to have in Madison schools. I think it would be a huge mistake for the Madison School District not to keep her on as a teacher, because she is an excellent teacher who knows how to connect with students from all different backgrounds, and that to me is so important. Thank you for listening, and I hope you really appreciate how much Ms. Beltran means to her students.
Hello. Hi, everyone. So I feel like I've been coming to these school board meetings, not very long, just for these last few months, but it saddens me and it really makes me feel disgusted that we can't come to an agreement. I've been sitting here and I had my whole spiel, right? And I'm changing it because I'm sitting here and looking at all these young women, and thank you for self-advocating for yourselves, pretty much begging you guys. You are a board of women, and I'm sure you all have been sexually assaulted, raped. I was raped, and it feels awful, and it feels disgusting. And if you see these young women who are coming up saying, we need help, you, as a body of women, you, as a body of leaders, should find a way. Okay, so if you guys aren't feeling safe enough and feel like there needs to be officers, find the common ground. Find that kumbaya moment. It's got to be somewhere. Gloria, you've had plenty of experience. Deputy mayor, you've been, with the police department. Find a way. Find a way. Find committees. Find organizations. Go and beg and plead out there for these future leaders and future representatives. That's what we need. That's what we want. And I'm sitting here for special education also for my son right here. He's 13. You know what he just asked me? He goes, Mom, is this all about sexual assault? And I said, no. And it's pretty sad, you guys. It makes me really sad. You know what I feel like? Remember that commercial with that Native American in the canoe, crying, rowing down the river, looking at all this nature? I mean, figure something out. My friend Martha comes with her daughter as well. I have to feed her chicken and cookies to make sure that she's calm. And she's patient enough with us. And I'm hoping that when her daughter is old enough, she's not going to have to be here again talking to this body of leaders about the same thing. How did you guys feel when you guys were assaulted, if you were? How did you guys feel when you guys were made to feel less than? Teachers are drowning. They're showing it in their behavior. They don't mean to. My son has special needs. You can't tell these. He's got, diagnoses and stuff. But man, I'm scared when he goes to a school that's going to have officers and he ignores. He tends to ignore. He gets uncomfortable. His anxiety goes. He's not going to listen. And he's not like, hey, doesn't mean to listen. Doesn't mean to not listen, I mean. But we got to figure it out. I mean, come on, you guys. I saw Martha bringing up some points and some people looked away. Like, oh my God, she's calling us out. I'm not going to look. Just be, you don't want these guys to come in and attack in an attacking manner, right? Colleen was just like, oh, don't yell and don't swear. Well, if you don't want to hear it, it's the same thing. I went to the Joint Finance Committee and it was only a handful of people where I took my son to testify that was making eye contact with each and every person. And it's not fair and it's not right, and I respect all of you, right? I'm respecting all of you, but I'm also saying, look, just pay attention. Show them that we're worth it, that they're worth it. That's all I'm asking. Like right now, some of you are looking and some of you are not, and that's fine. That's fine. But just think of what you're showing them. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joshua, and I go to Badger Rock Middle School.
we've had a lot of good teachers there, but they've been transferred, and now we have, well, this one teacher, he can't really get us to settle down like Miss Falk used to, because Miss Falk would literally yell at us to sit down or to get in line, and we would do it. But Mr. Salvo, Mr. S, can't do that because like he has, well, other people think his voice is funny, but I think it's serious because he is being serious. And no one listens to him because they think he's stupid. Why do you keep transferring our teachers? And because we have to get used to these teachers all over again. Like when you go to a different school, like when you first start in elementary school, but then you go to a different school, which is middle school, you have to get used to it, like a different teacher. And it's not fair to transfer teachers because you're already used to them if you've been to that school. And like, we really need our teachers to stay there until the end of the year, because if you transfer them too early, then like we're not gonna get a very good education because we're gonna have to get used to them over and over and over and over and over again. My teachers have been transferred like 5 times this year. Mr. Cousin, Miss Falk, Miss, I can't name the others, but it's a lot. It's really difficult because you have to start doing other projects that you don't think that your other teachers would ask you to do. And also, when I was in middle school, I was dragged to a safe room by my arms. I was being dragged literally on the floor by 2 teachers, Mr. B and Ms. Hughes. Ms. Hughes even admitted me to be hospitalized for 2 weeks. It was like a jail. All the rooms were locked, except for my bedroom. There was even a fence around the playground. It felt like I was imprisoned. My mom could only see me like once a week. Twice a week. And it was very difficult because I was away from home and I literally couldn't sleep because I had to get used to this new bed. It was not as comfortable as the other one. And it was a hospital, like it was a hospitalization for bad kids, and I'm not a bad kid. I'm not a bully, I'm a reactor. Every time someone calls me, let's say the B word, every time someone would call me the B word, I would react in a bad way. But now I'm just like, why do you call me that? I'm not a female or a dog. And the other B word, which is B-A-S-T-A-R-D, I say, I have a dad. And when I get offended, sometimes I throw chairs or I just swear at that person that called me, whatever they said to offend me, and I get in trouble, but they don't. All I do is react. I don't bully. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. I just want to say that I'm proud to be in the company of Joshua and Margaret and other fine people in this room. If there's somebody who didn't find that moving, we got bigger problems than I thought when I came in tonight. So, I've been a criminal defense lawyer. Oh, Joshua, he asked if I needed a hug. God bless you. What an example here. Let's hear it for Joshua.
Joshua in mind and my two boys, who are students here at East, and the girl who's the closest thing that I've got to a daughter who goes to East, Grace, my friend here, and all of our youth, they are our future. Not just metaphorically, in very real ways, they are our future. And how our young people are raised, boys and girls and non-conforming, okay, the entire possibility, the entire range of human embodiment. We are people in bodies, and we are human beings, and we have that in common. And as Margaret said, we have got to figure it out. It's not that tough. We have more in common than we have that separates us. And the fact that we're sitting here tonight when we could be anywhere else on the planet, and we're coming together to be our authentic selves in a room full of strangers, for me, most of you, to be vulnerable, like this young person has shown us, to speak our truths, right? We need to let our guard down, and we need to come together, one person at a time, one human being at a time, and then two together, and three and four. Everyone in this room has more in common than divides us, not only in terms of being human beings, but we are a community, we are a family here at East. This is a family, and we have limited resources and limited time, and we gotta figure it out. We gotta stop blaming each other. We gotta start getting on our high horse and feeling self-righteous about anything, because if any of our children is being failed or left behind, we are not doing it right. Okay? This is a diverse community. I was reminded of that by a dear friend tonight. In the school district, this is a diverse community. It's tough, it's not easy. We've got different cultures, small c and big C. We need to give each other the benefit of the doubt and come together, okay? And let our guards down a little bit and trust each other. And trust that we're not gonna demonize each other or attack each other. We're gonna come together, figure it out, like families do. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Evelyn Gilday-Wood.
My name is Evelyn Gilday-Boyles. I have 2 children in MSD. One now he's in high school. He went to Cherokee Heights Middle School, and another one is in Franklin and will be going to Hamilton. We didn't move to change schools, we moved to get a basement, but it's a different story. This is the time where I come up here and advocate for less resources for my children. My children are white, we are upper class. I went to college, my dad is a professor, we really know how to go to college. While my son was at Cherokee, he was he was recommended 3 times to be part of the Avid TOPS program. Well, as I think the Avid TOPS program is incredibly good, really renew it, it's really important. No teacher at Cherokee should have asked my son to apply for Avid TOPS. I want to encourage, I don't know if it's better, education to middle schools in particular about their selection process and their nomination process for the Avid TOPS program. But this is a program that is supposed to be for first-generation college students. It is supposed to be for children of color, for underserved populations, underrepresented populations in college. No one should have asked my son to do that. And so we said no, because we wanted resources to go to other people. We love advanced learning resources for Simon, that's awesome, but Avid TOPS should be targeted to who it's supposed to be targeted to. So, thank you.
Thank you. Amy Castle? Yep.
Mike, go ahead and move. Thank you. Thank you, Martha.
Thank you for letting me come.
Thank you. I think Amy Castro.
Hi. Yeah, sorry. Okay. Sorry. No, why am I apologizing? I don't understand how mics work. That's not my fault. I just wanted to, I have a couple of things to address tonight. I have quite the bullet list. So to start, from one Amy to another, I just want to say that quote that you pulled from that article was actually like wildly out of context. Ali was clearly addressing racial disparities in schools and was not addressing all white teachers, and was addressing, in particular, just the outrage of racial disparities in our schools, which are rampant because we have some of the worst racial disparities in this fucking country. Now, also I just want to imagine if people were just as outraged, if white teachers in particular as well were just as outraged for black students as they are when they read statements like that. So, and also that power dynamic, especially this last year when we've had many physical and verbal attacks on students, like particularly black students. So the other thing that I'm addressing is that it was really interesting that you all invited those speakers, the student poets, I believe. They were awesome, but I think that it was interesting that you commended particularly one of them for speaking on police violence, when Freedom Inc. Youth have been doing that for the last 2 years and trying to tell you about that. And nothing against that student. That was an amazing narrative to pull out. But it was interesting that they particularly addressed the ways in which parents of color and black parents in particular teach their children that they need to be okay with discomfort around the police and okay with being unsafe. And you're saying like, yeah, you should speak on that when you've been telling the Freedom Inc. Youth to feel comfortable with being unsafe. So I also think it's really important to address what happened to Moncur, because that was ridiculous. I mean, to put a timer is fucking ridiculous because these issues need to be addressed more thoroughly, and just limiting the amount of time people of color and black folks in particular can speak is absolutely ridiculous. And it just really went to show that this is all for, it feels like this is all for show. Why do we even come here sometimes? We should really be letting people talk longer. It's a very colonized mindset. Speaking of colonization, yeah, I got more points and I'm gonna keep talking. So, speaking of colonization, I'm gonna talk about the role of police in colonization. Very briefly, I'm gonna go as quick as I possibly can so that other folks can speak. So you don't need to tell me to hurry up. You all know that I'm Chicano, but more importantly, I have Mayan heritage. And when I was in school, I was told very point blank that the Mayan disappeared and that they no longer existed. So I always wondered, how am I still here? And that really relates to Native people being shoved out of the conversation, being silenced, and it really makes a statement when our MMSD schools are doing just that, because Native people are the most likely to be killed by police. They're the most likely to be brutalized by rape and victimized by white people. So in a lot of Native communities, there is a very specific distrust for the American government, and it's very important to acknowledge that, because we know where many missing and murdered Indigenous women are. We know that they are murdered or that they are being sex trafficked on the East Coast. We know where they are. And it's very important to acknowledge that, because the role that the police play in that is extremely important. So when I, as a Native person, am in contact with the police, I know that I am not being safe because they are more likely to brutalize me, they are more likely to rape me, they are more likely to attack me, and they are more likely to murder me and play a role in my people being sex trafficked. So, like they have been demanding, take cops out of school, let the community have control over discipline of students, and of course invest this money into youth of color and in programs that encourage their leadership, their arts, their beautiful selves. So, yeah.
Thank you. Steve Somerson.
So we're going to change topics pretty abruptly. My name is Steve Somerson. I am an elected representative from MTI and have the honor of being a faculty rep at East High School. Bargaining for base wages starts on May 28th when proposals are exchanged and all employees expect and deserve the full 2.44% cost of living base wage increase. Since Act 10 in 2011, all of us have dealt with a decrease in our take-home pay, and base wages have not kept up with the cost of living. Some say that this year has been a tough one. I expect all of us believe it has been challenging. Some in the district have tried to divide us over race and behavior issues. Base wages is something that all of us stand together on in solidarity. Budgeting for a 0.5% base wage increase and using longevity step increases for some employees to claim that the budget meets cost of living is both disingenuous and divisive. I believe that a cost of living salary boost for all should be the first priority in a school budget. Base wage increases are essential to preserve the economic value of the salary schedule. Base wage increases provide a pay increase to all employees. We will not be divided. We stand united. We will be submitting our proposal on May 28th, and we expect and deserve the full 2.44% base wage increase for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Miranda Garcia.
Hello, we are Thea Gillespie and Miranda Garcia Dove, and this is our presentation on the MMSD school dress code. The MMSD dress code says that students may dress in any style they desire as long as their chosen attire does not cause a disruption or distraction in the school environment, reveal intimate body parts, or pose a safety risk to the other students. It also says that top should be sufficient so as to not expose a student's bra.
The MMSD dress code is sexualizing young girls. Our focus specifically is on the exposure of bra straps. We believe that the way the dress code is presented and executed harms and threatens the learning environment MMSD strives to provide all students. Instead of encouraging and permitting girls to focus their attention on their educations, the dress code causes them to focus their attention on their appearance and how they will be perceived by fellow students and staff members.
To begin, the MMSD dress code is playing into the sexualization of breasts by prohibiting and discouraging the exposure of part of the bra. Bras are a part of everyday life for most girls at this age, and at times it is near impossible to completely conceal them.
The Harvard Crimson said in an article called Cleavage, The Fetishization of Female Breasts by Nian Hu, just like wide hips and pubic hair, full breasts signify sexual maturation for women. Men experience secondary sex characteristics too, such as facial hair, the Adam's apple, and vocal deepening. But nobody would think to shame men for exposing their Adam's apple. Breasts are not a sexual part of the human body, but the dress code treats them like they are.
Secondly, the dress code focuses most on the people they believe to be distractions because of a certain way their body looks. When two girls that are wearing the exact same shirt that violate the dress code walk into a classroom, one is scrutinized because of too much cleavage, and the other one isn't even brought to attention. Teachers and staff have also used demeaning comments instead of asking girls to change their attire. There have been several occasions where I have not been violating the dress code and have been told that I'm showing off and searching for attention, or that I'm being distracting towards other students.
Finally, girls at this age and during this point in their development are especially vulnerable to negative comments and remarks. Society has created a stereotype for women to follow. Especially with social media, girls have an immense pressure to appear a certain way. According to a BBC article called "Pressure to Look Perfect Hits Girls' Confidence" by Judith Burns, girls are constantly connected on social media and are bombarded with images of the ideal woman. School is supposed to be an environment, a supportive environment, and it's hard for girls to feel welcome and secure when society's expectations apply there as well. To conclude, we feel that the MMSD dress code is creating a harmful environment for students. We believe that MMSD is contributing to the sexualization of female students' breasts. It is targeting students with more developed breasts, and the dress code can cause students to lose confidence and a feeling of support in their environment. It isn't a girl's job to create a distraction-free environment.
Coming to these meetings and seeing students stand up and speak the way they have tonight always makes me proud to be a Madison teacher, and I haven't taught any of these girls and women and non-gender conforming students. My name is Stephanie Bees Patton. I'm an elected member of MTI Handbook Committee as well as a building representative at LVM Elementary. We begin bargaining for base wage increase next Tuesday, I don't know what day it is, the 28th, but who's counting down? I'm here to advocate for a cost of living base wage increase of 2.44% in addition to step increases. This year and in the past, the district has argued that with step increases, a 0.5% base wage increase is enough. However, for over 1,000 employees, including some of our lowest paid, there is no base wage increase, or there is only a base wage increase, there is no step increase for them. So counting the step increase, it doesn't count for many employees. Step increases are there to retain and reward staff for their years of experience. Every year I learn and grow with my students, just as you have and will learn and grow in your own positions. I made a list of different experiences I've sought out this year that MMSD didn't provide in terms of restorative practices and circles, teaching for Black lives, transformative justice, classroom mindfulness. I've done all this on my own and increased my experiences with it this year in my classroom, and that should count for more than a base wage increase. That should count for more than cost of living. So I'm here again just to advocate for that cost of living of 2.44% in addition to step increases, because anything less than that devalues the salary schedule, it devalues our experience, and anything less than 2.44 is a pay cut.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jess Guffey Calkins, and I'm a parent at Lowell Elementary. I'm here because Lowell students' special education hour requirements have been underallocated for several years, to the extent that this year, many students with disabilities will not be served as legally required by their IEPs, and at times their basic safety needs are going unmet. Additionally, based on next year's preliminary budget, Lowell's staffing allocation in the cross-categorical and special education areas will be cut by nearly 30%. Lowell's highest need students will return next year, which means that the 25 hours of currently unmet, legally required requirements for specially designed instruction will significantly increase, as we'll only have 2.5 cross-categorical teachers and 3 SEAs to serve 18 classrooms. Also, Lowell is subject to the disproportionality affecting students of color in special education and disciplinary referrals across the country. 54% of Lowell students with disabilities are students of color. MMSD's strategic framework lists racial equity and social justice as core values, saying that, I quote, "We will take responsibility for the ways that our current policies and practices serve to reproduce inequalities, and we will take action to close the gaps in opportunity that lead to racialized outcomes for children and youth of color. The insufficient special education allocations serve to perpetuate and increase these racialized outcomes. I seek to understand how the district monitors compliance with federal law and how it will ensure that each school receives sufficient staffing allocations to educate all students in a fair, safe, and inclusive environment. Special education staff allocations need to be based on minutes of need, not merely on head counts and ratios. We can't put teachers into the legal, moral, and ethical position where they are forced daily to choose which students' needs will go unmet. I'm urging the board and the district to act immediately on this issue to ensure that all kids and teachers get what they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Jones?
Good evening. I'm Mike Jones. I'm a teacher at Black Hawk Middle School, and I'm also vice president of MTI. I'm speaking not only for the 2.44 base wage increase for all of our employees within the district, but I also wanted to just make sure that we're connecting when we're talking about base wage and we're talking about hardcore or cold numbers to actually people that it affects. Because I'm not thinking about like my paycheck, because honestly I would actually be folded in to those who would get the 2.5 or above because of lane changes or whatnot. I'm thinking about the SEA I work with who's working 3 jobs and who I see after I go from work to the YMCA where she also works, and then she's also working on the side. She's a parent of multiple children. She's actually not even an MTI member because she can't afford it, but she deserves a cost of living base wage increase far more than I do, okay? But if I'm not going to speak up for her, then why would we even have a union in the first place if we're not going to look out for everyone? Okay? I also think about a parent who's also an SEA who's actually currently working her second job at Quick Trip while her daughter is getting ready to come here for East High School and is going to be an avid student that I care about deeply. And, you know, is she going to be the best at her job if she's also, you know, having to work until midnight in order to make ends meet? A lot of the people that we're thinking about aren't the ones who are actually in this auditorium. They're the ones who can't make it to the auditorium because their children take priority, their second or third jobs take priority. And honestly, it's kind of absurd that we even have to talk about it, because this is the second year we've had to talk about cost of living increase. First year, I get it, it's a mistake, or it's like a matter of one person in the budget saying, hey, let's try to do this. Second year, what I'm hearing is that we're gonna try to keep on doing this until they give in. We're gonna keep on trying to slide this under the table so that we can just kind of, you know, and try to divide them by saying, okay, we're gonna give the teachers this, but our maintenance staff and our brothers and sisters in AFSCME 60 don't get anything. And we're gonna try to divide them. And that's that sort of cynical thing that makes us not think about the things we really need to prioritize in our minds as educators, like racial justice, like social equity, like being better educators for our kids so that we can learn from our mistakes and be better for our kids in the classroom and in the hallways so we don't have these issues that we've been having, so we can get better at our jobs. But we can't get better at our jobs if we're worrying about making ends meet. And not just our teachers or those with high fluent positions, but those who actually do the real support work for us in our offices and in our hallways.
Thank you.
So as an East High School student, I just am up here to advocate for the 2.44 wage increase for the teachers. These teachers put in so much work to helping the students. They work far, far more than 40 hours a week to get our assignments ready, to grade our papers. to respond to the thousands of emails they get every week. And it's unfair for them to be making unlivable wages when they are doing probably the most important work in this society. These students are working or these teachers are working not only as classroom teachers, but they're doing the work of counselors, social workers, everything that needs to happen in a school for it to run effectively, but they're not being paid as if they're doing that. And teachers already are facing so much disrespect by a lot of members of the community and a lot of their students, and they are still putting up with it. And we're gonna lose the quality teachers that we have and that we deserve in the district if we're not paying the teachers fairly.
Thank you.
Superintendent Cheatham, members of the board, good evening. I'm John Olson, retired assistant superintendent. I worked for the district for 34 years in a variety of teaching and administrative responsibilities. I'm here tonight to advocate for renewal of the contract with the Madison Police Department and continuance of the SROs in our high schools. If you take the officer out of the school, you take away the ability to immediately analyze a situation, which can move from disruptive to dangerous to horrific. In fact, if you rely on 911 as your primary response, there are at least 5 or 6 reasons why the 911 response can be delayed, thus contributing to a worsening of the situation. I would like to also address the notion of the SRO representing a pipeline to prison. In fact, in your materials, if you will look at the chart on page 2, you will note from MMSD statistics that the arrests have absolutely declined over the last 3 years significantly. I believe that to be a product of this wonderful restorative justice system that's operating in 4 of the high schools. I also believe it to be a product of the fact that you now have 3 officers of color in the high schools and 1 officer who is a female of minority heritage. They are sensitive. They are sensitive to the needs of children, and they really enhance relationships with children. I'll close with this comment. Since Columbine, there have been 270 school shootings. 5 of those have been in Wisconsin. I urge renewal of the police contract to not only support in concept, but in proof, in actual proof to the community and the students that our schools will continue to be safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy Chakowski.
Next. Thank you. Next question.
Alrighty, my name is Amy Turkowski and I'm a first grade teacher in the district. I start with that because being a first grade teacher in MMSD is an important identity to me. The reason I'm here tonight is because I'm an elected representative from Madison Teachers Inc., the member-driven union that consists of people who are employed by the Madison Metropolitan School District. Sometimes I think people forget that I am a teacher who's in the union, not a union member who teaches. Tonight,
I stand before you and ask for a full 2.44% cost of living base wage increase for all MMSD employees. And when I say base wage increase, I want to be clear that I mean pay increase that increases the salary schedule, which provides a pay increase to all employees, regardless of their location on the schedule. As an elected member of the MTI Bargaining Handbook Committee, I served on the MTI/MMSD Teacher Salary Compensation Workgroup. Members of our committee worked very closely with staff from Human Resources Department to recommend changes to the salary schedule that were favorable and retain the value and integrity of the salary schedule. Adding 2.44% on top of the existing schedule continues to honor your commitment to invest in people. Bargaining will begin Tuesday, May 28th, when proposals will be exchanged. MTI will be asking for the full 2.44% cost of living base wage increase. We are here tonight to encourage you to ask the district to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Jesse? Oh, Jesse had to go. Okay. All right, thank you. Next speaker, Shayla Werner. Or is it Shayla? Shala, okay.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Shala Werner, and I'm a parent of 2 children in the district, one at Whitehorse Middle School and one at Schenck Elementary. I'm here to voice serious concerns about issues at our schools. After reading the heartbreaking article in the Isthmus last weekend, it's clear that we need changes to support the students and the teachers in our district. Great teachers are leaving the district or the profession entirely because they are under-resourced and they do not feel supported in situations that seem to happen on a regular basis in which students are disrupting and not being held accountable. At our middle school, we have heard that as many as 22 teachers out of a staff of about 65 may not come back next year. Our principal resigned last week, and our lead secretary resigned in early May, leaving teachers and staff to navigate transitions at the busiest time of the school year on their own. One of the reasons cited for leaving is that teachers can never take a day off due to a severe substitute teacher shortage. The substitute shortage, which amounts to 3 to 5 unfilled positions at each school every school day, results in uncertified and untrained staff being asked to step in at the last minute to oversee classes that go completely unsupervised for partial or entire periods, and full-time teachers regularly covering classes so often that they're burning out and losing out on time to plan their own courses. Our PTO voiced concerns about this in a letter sent in April, and although we did get a response that talked about hiring and training, teachers report seeing zero improvement as of our last meeting, May 15th. It really is unacceptable to blame teachers for this and call it good. Real change needs to happen now for our kids and our future. While the goals of the BEP and the strategic direction are laudable, poor implementation actually serves no one well. One of my son's best friends, who is a student of color, is going to live with a grandparent in Milwaukee next year because his mom is worried about sending him to La Follette. Another friend who has a son who is disabled will be pulling him out of the district next year after trying to work with them for years. She reports that his IEP is being violated daily. He has faced serious bullying, including on YouTube live streams somehow during school, and he is failing several classes after being assigned to the hallway during exams and other activities for which he was never allowed to make up. We can and we must do better. I voted for many of you in various elections, and I know that you are in these positions because you care. Now it's time to take action to make a serious difference until the district performs like a faith place that you would willfully want to send your own children, rather than a place where we have invested so much because we cherish the diversity and the potential, but we are now feeling stuck and let down and concerned that we're failing our kids, our teachers, and so many others who deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick, Briggs?
My name is Nick. I'm a resident of the city of Madison. I'm not someone with a great deal of hope in the efficacy of electoral politics. Throughout my life, I've seen nearly every elected official betray the interests of their electorate. I am someone who firmly believes in the power of community and workplace organization and mass movements. This being said, it was a pleasant turn of events to see everyone I voted for school board win their respective elections. There's a lot to be said here, all of which members of Freedom of Inc. have said time and time again, articulated with more depth and nuance than I should attempt. As members of the Madison community, I think we must honor the labor Freedom Inc. has tirelessly poured into the project of liberation by listening to them, standing with them, and fighting for their program on their terms. The research on the disproportionate profiling, policing, and segregation of Black and brown bodies is clear. The city of Madison, Dane County, and the state of Wisconsin are permeated with anti-Black racism, particularly evident in racial income and incarceration disparities. None of this is surprising when you consider that the U.S. was founded on genocide and enslavement and continues this tradition through the criminalization, incarceration, and cleansing of Black, brown, and indigenous people of color. The 13th Amendment openly allows for the use of enslavement as punishment for a crime. When slavery is legalized for the punishment of crime and Blackness is criminalized, what does that mean to keep cops in schools? It is both the threat and actual enactment of violence, of assault, imprisonment, isolation, and enslavement of people of color performed in the maintenance of cheap and incarcerated labor for the interests of those who own capital. While it's obvious that the scope of white supremacist capitalism is far grander than this school board, we now have an important opportunity to throw a meaningful wrench in a critical mechanism in the perpetuation of the school-to-prison pipeline here in Madison. These are important moments. All eyes are watching. Invest in youth of color, give the community control over policing, and take cops out of schools.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Bob Schaefer, and that I am disturbed to hear the number of experiences that some people supposedly have had. But that at the same time, that I just want to say that in my opinion and experience, that some of the things that have been alluded to or reported on, that I'm not sure that they are bounded in fact. But that, and I can talk louder if anybody wants to try to get over me. So that the thing that I would like to share is that last Thursday, I attended a meeting at Warner Park, in which the SRO from East High here was one of the guest speakers, and she spoke of the things that she worked with and of the situations that she encountered where in one case a student looked like they were ill, and it might have been a student of color. And so she went up to that student and she said, "Would you like some soup?" So she took him to her office and gave that person some soup to help them feel better, and as a result of that, their relationship improved. So I think that we look at the situation, and as I told you in earlier meetings, that my preference would be that we did not need to have police in our schools. However, that when we look at the national situation of the school shootings and things that happen in school, that one of the things that we have, and I've just spoken to your security officers out here, is that because the SROs have an opportunity to know the children, to know the students, and to intercede in their behalf when situations occur that would otherwise have them arrested, that they look to trying to help them get into the restorative justice system, and that when you have an officer in a school, and we have some of the reported shootings that have occurred throughout the country, that one of the pluses is that the officer that's in the school is in there to begin with and acts as a deterrent. I would hope something like that would never happen in the schools today, and that what my concern is that if it should happen, after officers that were removed from the school, on whose shoulders would that rest? So that's all I have to say, and I guess I finish early thanking you for your service.
Thank you. Riley, say.
Hello, my name is Riley Zhang. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm here as a supporter of the Freedom Youth Squad and their No Cops in Schools campaign. I'm a recent graduate of UW-Madison and was a student in both social work department and the educational policies department. I can tell you that in both these departments, we have consistently discussed the Madison School District, not as a shining example of what racial equity looks like, but one of the research fact that is one of the most racist school districts in the entire United States. National education research has demonstrated time and time again that police don't support students in schools. Instead, their presence leads to the criminalization of students of color. There's a clear consensus by national educational researchers that the more y'all make schools more like prisons by adding police, metal detectors, extreme zero tolerance policies, etc., the more schools will punish black and brown youth and push them into a school to prison pipeline. Like, outside in the cafeteria, there's a fucking sign that says, if a student is found in the cafeteria during class time, they'll be suspended out of school for a day. How the hell are students supposed to learn if they're being pushed out of schools via the school building via suspensions? How are students of color supposed to thrive academically when they are constantly being punished for simply existing? MMSD's continued investment in policing students of color demonstrates how y'all aren't willing to take the actual steps to combat the racially disparate outcomes in MMSD. This year, I had the privilege of working with some high school students at Goodman Community Center on a student-led research project on students' rights to education. Our students of color described how they are targeted by behavior quote-unquote specialists, how they are under-supported in ESL classrooms, how they're bored in classrooms because the material isn't relevant or challenging enough for them, how they are discouraged from taking AP classes by racist teachers or staff, and how they feel threatened by police in schools. As the Freedom Youth Scout describes constantly, the $360,000 that goes to fund police can go towards a lot that actually supports the education of students of color. Our students had plenty of ideas on how to do that, ranging from hiring more teachers of color, having better teacher-to-student ratios, having classrooms that don't feel like concrete bunkers, and more. Just go ask them, or listen to them, because they've been saying it for 2 years. I want to close by echoing Sivan and praising the work of Freedom Youth Squad. Education researchers around the nation know of their work and see them as leaders in understanding how we can create more racially equitable schools. So why can't MMSD? It's great to see your head nodding to what the youth are saying, or just staring at them silently, but those head nods are worthless without action. Stop paying cops to criminalize students of color and invest that money into students of color instead. I know y'all operate by yearly budgets and such, but let me remind you that every day without action is another day where black and brown students are physically and emotionally harmed by police at Madison schools for their simple existence. Y'all need to take action. Listen to your students of color, listen to the Freedom Youth Squad, because they are nationally recognized experts on how to make these schools better. Take cops out of schools, allow for more community control, and reinvest this $360,000. Thank you.
Thank you. That was our last public comment. I want to thank everybody for their patience and their participation. This is one of our most important roles on the school board, so I take that seriously. Thank you, and thanks to the board for your patience, and we'll move on to the next item, which is my announcements. So West students bring Green Deal to Madison. Several West High School students supported by other Madison area high schools have called for both the City of Madison and Wisconsin school districts to transition to 100% renewable energy in the upcoming decades. This past April, a large number of MMSD students organized to participate in March in the Youth Climate Strike. with the goal of demonstrating student solidarity in addressing the current crisis. The board recognizes all of the students that are raising their voices to make our planet a safer and livable environment for ourselves and future generations. The board backs all of these students in their efforts. The next announcement, River Food Pantry provided free lunch to students over spring break. The board humbly thanks the Munch Program volunteers run by the River Food Pantry for providing Madison area students lunch over spring break in March. The Munch volunteers, along with program coordinator Joey Dunscombe, helped provide lunch to over 400 kids by filling bags with sandwiches, chips, and fruit over the course of the week. This program primarily serves students who qualify for either free or reduced lunch. The board very much appreciates River Food Pantry, the Munch Program, volunteers, and Joey Dunscombe for helping to feed our students over the week-long break. Thank you. Now we'll move on to the superintendent's announcements and reports.
All right, thank you. If it's okay, I need just a minute to make sure we're set up. Is that all right?
Yes.
All right, great. So team, do you want to approach? I'll make sure you have the...
I'm sorry, we are getting a request to recess. So we'll just take a few seconds.
That'd be great.
Few minutes to go to the restroom for the board, and then we'll come back.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. are you? I'm going to kick this presentation off and then hand it over to Lee Verstra and Lauren Morris to dive in. But let me frame it up this way. This school year, I have had the pleasure of introducing to you three very powerful cross-functional teams of educators from throughout the district that are moving forward critical pieces of our work. As a reminder, in the fall, you met with several members of our mindfulness team. These are school-based and central office team members who are expanding access to mindfulness practice for our employees. Mid-year, I introduced you to another team called our Equity Fellows, which is a team, again, of school-based and central office staff members who are helping to lead conversations around racial equity all across the district. And tonight, I have the pleasure of introducing you to our innovation team, which is helping us learn how to expand practices related to innovation. I mention that because the reason I wanted to introduce these three teams over the course of the year is to show how important it is that our work is not, so much of our work is about emergent practice and is coming from the people who work with our students every single day. So tonight, as you know, we rewrote the strategic framework. We heard from many people along that year of listening how important it is that staff work in environments where they can take risks and where they can acquire new skills and capacity to innovate, which is not just a thing, right? It's a process. We decided to get this work off the ground, we needed help. We wanted to create a team to help us learn about innovative practice that is grounded in the day-to-day work of our teachers. And so we asked two teacher externs to take on this role, Lee and Lauren. We wanted the team to be substantially separate from the rest of the organization. We felt that if we're going to build our capacity to innovate and take risks, we wanted to first try it in a setting that was both physically separate. This team is housed at the Spark building, and kind of separate from some of the kind of typical, I hate to say it this way, but bureaucratic processes that we insist upon in the main organization. So substantially separate and freed up to try things in new ways. And we need to give them some time to figure out what it means to build organizational capacity to innovate at every level, from the classroom to the board level, which is why we strategically place this presentation at the end of the school year to give them this first year of runway to learn something together. So with that, I wanted to pass it off to Lee Verstra, who is a teacher from East High School, and Lauren Morris, who's a teacher from Lowell Elementary School. We're going to talk to you about this really exciting work that is emerging in MMSD.
All right, we're sharing the mic here.
Yeah.
And
I'm really tall.
So I'm Lee Verstra. East has been my home was my home for 11 and a half years, and so to be back here actually feels so good. So good evening, board. I am one of the Rocket externs, and I'm really excited to present to you kind of our learnings this year.
And I'm Lauren Morris, again from Lowell Elementary School, where I taught kindergarten and then second grade for about 8 years. So we are, again, the Rocket team. We're 2 teachers and 2 central office staff members. We have Beth Vade, our project manager, and Andrew Stats is back here, the executive director of research accountability and data usage, who oversees our team. We're a small but mighty team that is housed at the New American Family Spark building on East Washington Avenue. We just started up this past August and have been exploring and learning together about what innovation can look like in MMSD. Lee and myself are externs, similar to an internship or sabbatical. We have taken a year leave from our school position to learn deeper about innovation and education and to better infuse it into the schools and our classrooms. So we're super excited about the work we've been doing this year. We're brought out of our classrooms to add teacher insight to reevaluating and shifting MMSD's culture systems, and structures. Born out of the new strategic framework's fifth lever of change, Rocket intentionally cultivates, develops, and grows MMSD's capacity to innovate around complex, equity-based problems in order to find new opportunities so our students, staff, and community thrives. With the tagline, elevating exploration and sparking innovation, Rocket is driven by the belief that when you have a safe space for thinking differently and taking risks, you can create something truly profound. This past July, MMSD partnered with American Family's brand new Institute for Corporate and Social Impact. The Institute focuses on closing equity gaps in America by targeting 4 major areas of influence: K-12 education, youth development, resilient communities, and economic opportunity. As part of their K-12 education arm, the Institute provides Rocket with workspace at the Spark Building, resources, skill building, coaching, and networks to advance this work. The Institute has also supported collaborative work throughout MMSD by opening up spaces for approximately 50 meetings between January and now, along with many more informal conversations and impromptu meetings in the space. We're very grateful for the support American Family has provided, especially from the Institute. So, how do we make this happen? As drivers of innovation within MMSD, Rocket has focused on 3 main concepts. The first, cultivating MMSD strength and innovation. Secondly, facilitating equity-based innovation in MMSD and beyond. And also by developing innovative skills and capacity amongst our MMSD staff.
Okay. So over the last 9 months, we have explored many opportunities that have been provided through the strategic framework. So the first thing that we did is we went and learned from our schools. Lauren and I went looking to find what innovative practices are happening in MMSD. We spent most of Q1 on a listening tour, trying to figure out what the strengths in innovation are, and really what staff think innovation means throughout MMSD. So what did we find? We visited 32 of 50 schools, and we learned that innovation spreads most often laterally in MMSD, that there is a positive correlation between encouraging and supportive leadership and staff willing to try new things, and that innovation happens most often out of necessity as problems emerge, and that innovation comes from those who are closest to the problem, schools, and they are doing everything in their scope to solve those problems. So these insights have actually really helped us build Rocket. For example, this summer we are hosting a summer design workshop to help build leadership capacity around innovation and give schools the tools to think differently about the problems and the opportunities that emerge. Bo McCready, who has left MMSD, created this amazing viz for us, and if you are interested in more data that has come out of our listening tour, I suggest that you check it out. The link is provided there. All right. The second area that we focused on was facilitating innovation in MMSD and beyond. And so as a way to facilitate equity-based innovation within MMSD, the first step that Rocket takes is to actually scope a design challenge. We intentionally bring together cross-functional, diverse teams based on skill need, roles, perspectives, and the different needs that the specific challenge has. This process not only includes a design team, but also a council that oversees and supports the work. The innovation process that we then use is a mix of liberatory design, which is National Equity Project's Human-Centered Design Plus, that actually incorporates a notice and reflect phase into the work. We use Lean Startup and Agile Scrum for project management tools, and we use these processes and tools to find the most desirable, feasible, and viable solution within our challenge. As we move through the process, and you can see on the slide the 7 steps of liberatory design, it's often that we actually are cycling back. So we may be testing something and then realize that it's not working, and so we go back and iterate some more. Another really important aspect of our design work is that we move at a rapid speed. By creating dedicated work days and challenge lengths, teams are able to invest time and space to think differently or deeply and move quickly. So this year we actually worked on a 90-day sprint, 30-day sprints, and a 5-day sprint to move work quickly. So over the last 6 months, we have helped build and guide innovation sessions with a few specific groups. We chose challenges that had a high equity impact with an eager and supportive sponsor. The first challenge that we had was the Office of Youth Re-Engagement's Justice Involved Youth, and looking at how do we better support those youth. The second project was reimagining the Schools of Hope Middle School program, and then working with the Minority Student Achievement Network Research Practitioner Council, which is a group of 15 different school districts from around the nation that come to talk about equity within the nation and around within their districts. And we showcased to them how innovation is actually being used to drive equity within MMSD. And what we did with them, is one of the images on the screen showcases, is we actually took them through a design sprint to show how they could actually use this process and these tools within their districts to drive equity. We have also worked with student groups, actually from East High School, to get them excited about thinking differently and engaging in community-based problem solving. And then we have also been able to infuse this work and these practices in other areas of MMSD. So actually Rocket supported the 5-day SIP redesign sprint, and then helped them in the prototyping after that sprint in the winter. I'm gonna take a sip of water. So the first design challenge that we worked on was with the Office of Youth Re-Engagement, with our challenge being how might we provide opportunities and systems that see, uplift, and affirm our justice-involved youth to prevent reoffending. The first step is that we actually worked with the new Office of Youth Re-Engagement to build a cross-functional team. So we brought members from central office, we brought members from our regular high schools, members from staff from metro schools, and then brought in a county social work. We interviewed current and former justice-involved youth to gain empathy around their wants and desires, but also their greatest pain points. Using what we heard, we were able to generate tons of insights and themes that emerge from everything that they said to actually allow us to define our client that we named Tony. Tony is just a broad version of all the interviews that we went through, so that we actually create a point of view statement to build our solutions and brainstorm around. From that, we were able to come up with ideas for how we could solve for Tony. And so a current prototype that we have, it includes a youth advocate, a student-determined circle of support, and a 24 to 48 hour springboard center to help students transition back to their home school. So in order to test for the desirability, the feasibility, and the viability of this prototype, the team then had to go back to the youth. They needed to actually see how they responded. And so we had student focus groups to generate more ideas, and actually had to go back and iterate some more based on what they said. Then we went and we actually engaged with the youth currently under custody and worked with key members within the justice system to test for the feasibility. Because as you know, the justice system has many barriers, and so how can we actually use the youth's voice and then work within the system? The design team is currently testing more on this prototype in hopes to further launch their solution, and they have actually been presenting to their council to push the work forward.
So the other design challenge that we were working on this year is the Schools of Hope Middle School Challenge. Our charge was to dedicate 3 days a week for 90 days to explore how we could leverage Schools of Hope resources to increase middle school student academic achievement. For this challenge, we created an 8-person team, including members from the Urban League of Greater Madison, United Way, MMSD, and MSCR. We even had a high school student participate. Despite the polar vortex, we interviewed over 40 middle school students and used the empathy work to define our client and brainstorm solutions around everything from incentives and celebrations to unlimited access to mentors and therapists to weekend schools, homework helplines, commercials, and even robots. Looking at the themes of our interviews and the universal components of our brainstorming, we began to prototype a dedicated tutoring space, elevating student leadership and Black excellence. In this model, non-traditional forms of leadership are honored, uplifted, and connected back to their skills as academically successful students. Throughout the prototyping process, we tested various components for desirability before and after school, maybe during lunch or during encores, and reported out our findings and gathered back from our council. We are now transitioning our learnings to a larger scale prototype at O'Keefe. So the next part, as far as developing innovation skills and capacity, we had the honor of attending the Stanford D School K-12 lab and learning firsthand from their model, as well as countless educational innovators from all over the world. We participated in IDEO courses on human-centered design, prototyping, and adaptive leadership. We've learned from and engaged with experts from all over, including Rich Halverson from UW School of Education, Leslie Sager from UW School of Human Ecology, Rick Edinburgh from Institutum, a design firm located in Chicago, and from our partners at American Families by attending their Ignite Bootcamp and learning how they do innovation in their company, as well as how they train staff around it. Gained some amazing coaching training from Kristen Stenzi, who is an Ignite Catalyst, and connected with G-Beta and Generator groups, providing insights on their educational-based startups, as well as reading a ton of books and articles.
So what have we learned in 9 months? In a nutshell, a lot. We also really know how to use Post-it notes and Sharpies incredibly well. So if you ever want to learn a skill with a Post-it note, come on down to Spark. Yes, people are like, oh, do you have, yep, Post-it note, there you go. So we have learned 5 key things that we need to do in order to keep equity at the center while still driving innovation within MMSD. The first thing that we need to do is design together. If we are to intentionally design for equity, we must seek out diverse voices, skills, and perspectives in order to engage this work. From school-based staff, to students, to community partners, we need to think innovatively so that we are able to design together. 2, we need to provide a safe space to explore. From our listening tour and then also our work in our design challenges, we have learned that innovation happens when we feel safe to take risks. Here in MMSD, we need to grow a culture that supports failing forward and pushing our boundaries. We also know that we need to dedicate time to think deeply and move quickly. Full days for teams to work together are critical. We have found that teams that are able to dedicate time to the work are able to move quickly and push the work forward. We also have learned that we can find the time. We asked people from all over to actually leave their positions at 60% to come in and do this work. It is possible. We need to bring voice into this process. We need to design with others, not for them. And to do so, we need to focus on letting user experience and voice, especially of our students, to drive what we do. But most importantly, the learning that Lauren and I feel is most important is that in order to drive equity and innovation, we need to continuously pause and reflect. Pausing does not mean that we slow or stop the work, but rather we step back and ask, am I doing the right thing? Are the right voices at the table? And how does my identity impact the systems, processes, tools, and people that we are designing with and for?
So, where do we go next? Rocket plans to continue our learning and developing the innovative culture in MMSD by building capacity in classrooms while producing more leaders by way of facilitating workshops, particularly through the summer, hosting annual externs, and providing other leadership and coaching opportunities, all related to takeaways from our Q1 listening tour. Summer workshops are based on learning from the listening tour and other work this past year, focused on growing innovative skills and capacities of our school-based leaders. As far as the externs, after this year, we're thinking about how to develop this program to grow our community, overlap skills, and have more target approach to infusing learning and skills back into schools and classrooms. This not only lends itself to opportunity solving, but also for building student skills around innovation. We'll continue developing the innovative skills of the Rocket team as leaders in innovation, strengthening network, pushing thinking, and questioning assumptions. Finally, we'll continue designing for more challenges and opportunities because there's so many places where this work can continue to transform the district, Madison as a community, and Wisconsin public education as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to?
Yeah, if you have any questions for the team, they'll stick around and answer a few. But while I have the mic, I will just thank Lee and Lauren for taking a huge risk themselves and helping us get this team started. So with that, I'll pass it back to you, Gloria. And if you have any questions or comments for the team.
I just want to say, I mean, I think this is great work. I mean, innovation, right, and moving rapidly on some of these really tough challenges in our community is so important, and building the capacity in our community and within our schools. I mean, seriously, this is really where we need to be and go. So great work is what I have to say. Is there any questions, comments from the rest of the board? Kate?
Thank you for sharing. I've been looking forward to this one. So I have lots of questions, but I guess maybe your kind of closing statement around failing forward. I mean, lots of innovation fails, and that's how we know we're pushing the boundaries far enough and hard enough that we're trying something new. And so I guess I'm curious, how are we thinking about measuring success from the kind of mini startups that you guys are creating, and how do we know we have the permission to also stop doing things that maybe don't work and try something different?
So that's a great question, thank you. Yes, our failures teach us so many things. And one of them is to stop. And so actually one of the great things is that we have councils, and we present to our councils, and our councils actually help us make decisions, ask questions, and really look at the work that we're doing with a decision point to actually stop the work. They also have the same decision point to pivot and say, you know what, I actually think you guys are going in a different direction that we need to go. Let's think about some other opportunities, and also persevere.
And maybe just so that's thank you. Measuring success, I mean, how do we know we're making a difference with?
So currently we're actually working on refining our theory of change with our partners. So thank you to American Family for really helping with us. And so we will get more information to you on our metrics for our learnings this year and then going forward based on our theory of change.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's the measurable outcomes for the office and its impact, and the projects that they choose to take on. And when they scope those projects, part of scoping it is figuring out how they would measure success in a short-term sprint. So I don't know if you guys want to say a little bit more about that. Is that getting more at your question?
So yes, with each project, the design team takes the time to really, as they're figuring out what the real problem is and trying to dig out and define that problem and dig out and define who the client is, also trying to look at what those metrics for success would be. So the team itself defines that with each particular project. For example, we're kind of winding down to really making sure that we know what that looks like going forward with the Schools of Hope as a group. So again, with each project.
I really appreciate what you shared with us this evening. It's a really beautiful presentation. I am curious about the involvement of students, and particularly your emphasis around students who are experiencing incarceration. I know the word incarceration actually wasn't used to describe that setting of detainment. And so when you're talking about incarcerated young people, where are they incarcerated? Are you going into the juvenile detention center? Are you following up with kids after they leave? Are you going into settings where kids have been placed to serve long-term sentences? And what does it look like to have that student voice represented in this presentation?
That's a great question. So in the interviews that we did with youth that have and some that still are just as involved, we went to Metro Detention and interviewed students there. We also have interviewed students at Metro Shelter, and then also many students around MMSD that were willing to talk to us about their experience. One of our challenges that we have is if they are actually leaving the Madison or Dane County, that having access to them is, we don't necessarily have the legal capacity to go and talk to them. If they come back, there were a couple of students that we were actually able to follow up with that had come back, but others that we unfortunately have not. How is their voice represented? So when we go and do empathy work, it's actually all anonymous, and we take, you always go in pairs, and we take incredibly detailed notes and everything that they're saying and capturing quotes, capturing observations of just body language. And for us in this project, it was really important to think about which pairs we're going in and thinking very cognizantly about the relationships that some of the staff actually had with those youth so that they felt safe. For example, when I went with one of our team members, they said, is she a parole officer? And just making sure, because they knew that that was a safe person for them, that we could establish a trusting space to have these conversations. So their voice comes through in our client point of view of all the themes that actually came up. So for example, in every single interview that we had, there were certain things that were very clear. For example, family. Their friends are really important to them, and digging into why is it, what is it about those youth that need that, and second chances. That was one that was huge, is that I want to walk into a school and feel like I have a second chance, that I'm not judged for what happened either in school or out in the community. And so how do we actually create a system that really affirms those needs?
Can I ask just a really brief follow-up question? So what you're saying is, when students are in Metro, students cannot be sentenced to serve time in Metro. So we're not following students into corrections unless they return to the district.
Correct, because I don't have the legal consent to go to certain places. As an MMSD staff member, I can go talk to them if they are willing. So I've spent a lot of time actually at the Thursday lunches talking to youth, which for MMSD staff in here, it's the most life-changing experience that I had, and it's really opened my eyes up to how the experience of those youth. And so for me, from a change standpoint, it has really been pretty impactful.
Okay, Ananda, and we'll move on to the next item.
Thank you for the work. I'm curious around the consensus on equity definition, particularly around like a team and how equity can be defined within the context of people's experience and background. I can clarify a bit with the question. So like, how did, because you did amazing work, right? So how did you all looking at this, or a similar or the same North Star as far as like, what is equity?
How did we both, if I'm restating this, how we both and our team saw what equity looks like, feels like, sounds like. That makes sense? I can start. So some of the training that we have gone through is actually really having those conversations. And so going to, for example, Stanford and to the the D Schools K-12 lab that now uses liberatory design, we were given training on how we start actually building our team to be able to have those conversations about our identity and what equity looks like and what is equity. And so with our Schools of Hope Challenge in particular, we really made sure that we had those conversations. And that was part of our learnings of continuously pausing and reflecting so that we made sure that we stayed true to that piece. Does that make sense? Okay.
Great. Chris, yeah, I do want to move on to the next item, but do you have Chris, is it quick? Is it? Okay, yep. Let's make it, yeah, so we can go on to the next.
First, thank you so much. And I was just curious how you went about identifying the challenges that you worked on. What was the process to identify them?
I think it just comes at where we think we can make an impact in the district and also an impact in our learning. So trying to figure out, as a new team, what challenges, what types of things we should focus on, how we can connect with various groups, what the best timelines will be. So trying to figure out what a larger project, a smaller project, 90 days, 5 days, and trying to try a couple of different things, but also definitely about where that impact is. Something like Schools of Hope, that's an entire, almost the entire middle school population is impacted by that program. So how can we figure out how we can make some really serious changes, rethinking, just reshaping and restructuring there. A population like justice involved youth, where we are now, we're not servicing our students the way we need to. So those are things that are immediate needs. How can we really use this innovative process to just think differently about things that people are working through, but we just not where we need to be yet.
And I would just add, I think this is part of what they're figuring out this year too. What are the right size projects? There's kind of two levels of work happening. How do we build capacity, the organization, for other teams to innovate, learn enough about the process that they can do it on their own and solve their own problems, and which projects is this kind of central team best positioned to work on in collaboration with American Family. And I think they're figuring it out. I mean, even hearing tonight about, again, the substitute shortage issue. I just want this team to get a bunch of people in a room and over a week just figure out some new strategies and try them, right? There's just so many possible problems. So it's got to be organizational capacity building and more intentionality about what this team needs to be working on. And I think we're figuring that out. More to come.
One additional thing is it's important that we also worked with people, with sponsors that were really eager to do this work. Right. Because this is a totally different way of thinking, and especially when we are asking members to step out of their position to do this work. And so, for example, the Family Youth Community Engagement Department in MMSD is willing to give someone up. MSCR found actually someone from Memorial High School to step into this. Urban League has stepped up and supported this tremendously. United Way, we had actually a student member from their CST on this. Those are the ways that when you have sponsors that are really like, yes, we're going to do it, that really helps in driving this work forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what are some of the long-standing, hard-to-budge equity issues that we just can't seem to get traction on? Those issues seem really well positioned for this team to work on. So thanks you too. Really appreciate you, Beth. Appreciate everything that American Family has done for us and this team. Thank you, Gloria.
Great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is the report on items that proceeded through the instruction work group held on May 6th, 2019. I'll turn it over to Mary.
There was one item on the agenda, and that was the partnership renewal for advancement via individual determination, or AVID, and Teens of Promise, or TOPS. That is going to be voting item later, an action item, so the board discussed that, and it is a partnership renewal. And I think any questions that the board had, staff followed up with additional information. The next meeting is June 3rd, and the topics there are honors and earned honors, Schools of Hope Elementary and Middle School Partnership, and the Juventud Escalera Partnership.
Thank you, Mary. Next item on the agenda, report on items that proceeded through the operations work group held on May 13, 2019. I'll turn it over to Kate.
So we had two relatively meaty topics on the operations work group agenda last week, or I guess a couple weeks ago at this point. The main item was our long-range facilities plan, which we have had several discussions about in preparation for a possible 2020 referendum, capital referendum. And so we, at that point in time, gave guidance to the district around proceeding with the Aspire plan for community feedback, which we will get kind of more information on after once that process has played out, and then some initial view into what the elementary capital referendum and approach could look like, although that will be farther out. And then a budget review, tried and true. So next meeting is on June 10th.
Great, thank you, Kate. Next item is it's the action items that proceeded through the operations work group held on May 13th. We are on 7. Action items that proceeded through the instruction work group held on May 6th, 2019. I move that the Board of Education approve a high-intensity partnership AVITOPS College Club to be carried out with the Boys and Girls Club of Dane County as set forth in the documents prepared for the regular board meeting dated May 20th, 2019. Can I get a second? Ahmad, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Gloria, I will recuse myself from that vote.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you. Mary Berg, recusal. Thank you. Action items that proceeded through the operations work group held on May 13, 2019. There were no action items this month. We will move on to the consent agenda. Let's see if I can get this one right. We have, I move that the Board of Education adopt and approve all the motions set forth in section 10 of the electronic agenda prepared for the May 20th, 2019 regular school board meeting, exactly as said motions are written. By voting affirmatively on this motion, a board member expresses his or her affirmative vote on each of the motions consolidated hereby, subject to any express separations that have been made by any member of the school board. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any separations or questions? Yeah.
I'd like to separate 9.23.
And I was going to separate 9.6. Just for discussion. 9.6 for a very brief discussion.
So that's 9.23 and 9.6. Okay, we're going to separate those two items and vote on the other remaining items. Ahmad, can I get your advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's move on to discuss 9.23.
So 9.23 is the Human Resources Report, and I don't actually have a problem with the Human Resources Report, but except for the way it's being formatted these days. The Human Resources Report used to separate staff who are resigning versus staff who were retiring, and we have a staff retention issue in MMSD, and it would be really, really useful as a board member to know how many of our departing staff are resignations versus how many are retirements. I would like to put out a request that the Human Resources Report go back to disaggregating that information so that as a board member, I can do a better job of trying to understand and work on the issue of staff retention. So could we start to get the Human Resources Reports with resignations and retirements separated like we used to in the past?
Chris, we'll certainly look into it. I see Matt kind of nodding over there, and we'll certainly talk about it at the next board officers meeting and decide on where to go with it. But I appreciate the request.
I also find it really good if you, sorry, Madam Chair, I forgot to raise my hand. I apologize for not following for me. But I do find it a little hard to track. Maybe possibly we can divide it a little so that each category is a little broader just visually.
Okay, great. Thank you. Move on to 9.6.
Yeah, I mean, this is a quick one. This is a banana purchase for 300,000, over 300,000 bananas. Petite bananas for MMSD. So, first of all, I'm thrilled we're providing that many bananas for kids. The price went up 50%. Any reason why I noticed there was only one respondent from the RFP, and we're spending $50,000 on bananas, which.
That's a really good question. Is anyone positioned to answer that? Chad, I see you standing up. Okay.
Sorry,
Chad, we're going to talk about the prices on the petite bananas.
I wish I could do some digging for you. I do know that Steve does get competitive bids on it. I actually also know that bananas in particular, at least I recently read an article that there is the possibility of them even becoming extinct through some of the hybridization of the banana plant. Maybe even petite bananas are more hard to find. I just have to do some digging and get back to you. I don't have any exact answers on the purchase of petite bananas. Sorry.
Is it time sensitive?
They usually are, but
yeah, I would say the worst case scenario would be you know, bananas for a month.
And that doesn't seem like a good outcome. Look, I mean, the commentary says that we just had one response, so it just was given the price increase and that there was only one response. It's maybe just a flag for future commodity purchases to make sure that we're getting competitive bids. So.
Yeah, I do know that in a lot of cases, we even see this in the world of technology, that there are vendor distribution channels that some of the competitors can get boxed out of the area. And Steve may put in a position that if we wanted bananas, that was the only vendor that was going to be able to provide them to our area.
We'll certainly look into it, Kate. I wish I had this question in advance.
Yeah, I totally would have.
But certainly we'll look into it.
We can dig into it.
That's fair.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you. I actually thought Kate's question was going to be a little bit different. It was actually going to be, why are we voting on purchase of bananas? So I understand the threshold limitation, but I'm just going to put it out there that I think that as a board we should talk about the amount of consent items that we have and what they are, and given so many pressing issues that we're dealing. And hearing from both parents, students, and staff, I find it very complicated that we're voting and spending time discussing bananas.
Thank you. Thank you, Ananda.
Gloria, may I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I answer Ananda's question, if I may? We did have a legislative committee a policy committee at one point that did discuss this issue. I don't know if it fell by the wayside. I know Kate, TJ, and I were on it at one point because I was the alternate. Kate and TJ were the two main ones. It's possible if we revive that committee, that could be an issue of discussion, but under the board rules currently, anything over $10,000 requires board approval.
I think it's 20.
Is it 20 now?
Okay, great. All good points. We will follow up on Ananda's comments, and thank you, Chris. Yep, I move to approve 9.6 and 9.23 on the consent agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
Ahmad, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. We're on to the next one. Number 10, other items of business proposed to consider under section 10 consent agenda, none for this meeting. Any individual items identified under section 10 that were separated from the motion, we did that. Other reports from the board, Student Senate.
Yes, Student Senate met on May 1st and then again on the 15th. During this time, we discussed some Board of Education issues, including primarily the Building Excellence Plan and upcoming referendum. We also talked with the Madison Foundation for Public Schools about the possibility of an alumni network and how that would be implemented in the future. We held at our last meeting a public forum for our officer positions for Student Senate for next year, the president and the student representative to the board. And they answered questions about their future goals for the district and for Student Senate. And we also discussed Student Senate bylaws to determine how we can work efficiently and have effective communication and collaboration with the board in the future and closer ties to that. And then finally, just recruitment strategies for next year and how we can reach a wider population. And our next meeting is actually moved to June 5th.
Gloria,
Yes.
is it all right if I say something? I just want to recognize this is Ahmad's last regular board meeting.
Yeah.
And we give him a big round of applause and a thank you. Thank you, Ahmad.
Thank you, Ahmad, for your service. We do not have any old or new business, so I move to adjourn the meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
Ahmad, your advisory vote?